On the afternoon of December 25, Christmas Day itself, the trial of Nicolae Ceaușescu and his own wife began. And this was just a few hours before millions of Romanians witnessed a scene they never thought would happen. The couple Ceausescu were wiped out right in front of the camera. Why did the Romanians kill their president? That's what we will answer. But before we start that, if you're new to our channel, please don't forget to subscribe so you'll always be updated with videos like this. Ceausescu led Romania as if he owned the entire country. He called himself the genius of the Carthagins, the most beloved son of the nation, and the supreme leader of the Golden Age. His wife Elena, who even struggled with spelling, was proclaimed as a well-known scientist and supposedly an expert in polymer chemistry. Together, they turned Romania into the most brutal police state in Eastern Europe. Their secret police had an estimated 57,000 officials and hundreds of thousands of informants, and because of their numbers, there was almost one informer for every 43 people. Romania deliberately made everyone feel that someone was watching them everywhere, and that it could be anyone. Your neighbor could report you, your coworker could record your every word. Even your own child could betray their parents in exchange for a reward from the state. And it's not just human eyes that are watching. They hid microphones behind pictures in people's homes. Conversations between husband and wife were recorded. Every telephone line was tapped. There were departments where people listened all day and wrote transcripts. Even typewriters had to be registered. Every sample letter was kept on record so it would be easy to identify who wrote any anonymous letter. The regime knew that fear was more effective than prayer. They didn't need to arrest everyone. It was enough for each person to believe that they could face danger for even a single wrong word. In the eyes of every Romanian, it was as if just one misstep could mean the end for the whole family. The same televisions that showed their executions were also the devices that repeatedly broadcast propaganda for many decades. While Ceausescu was building the second largest administrative building in the world, a palace whose construction destroyed a large part of old Bucharest, almost 1/5 of its historic center, the people were starving. In 1980, the dictator decided that Romania would pay off all its foreign debt, and he did this no matter the cost. And when he announced in April 1989 that the roughly $10 to $13 billion debt had finally been erased, it came at the cost of the lives and livelihoods of many people. Food was extremely rationed, and people would spend up to 5 hours in line just for a piece of bread. Meat became a rare commodity that only appeared once every few weeks. Cooking oil was measured by the spoonful, and milk was reserved only for children under 1 year old. And the elderly learned to survive on corn and potatoes, if they could still find any. Life became even harder when winter came, as energy rations became extremely strict. In Bucharest, for example, only about 4.5 hours of heating was allowed each day, and it was often interrupted. Because of this, the family slept wearing jackets, huddled together in a small room. Grandmother, grandfather, parents, and children. Everyone conserved body heat so they wouldn't get cold. In the hospitals, there were almost no medicines left. There were operations being done without anesthesia, and babies were being born without proper equipment or supplies. By 1989, Romania had one of the highest infant and maternal mortality rates in all of Europe. And that's just according to hospital records. When the regime fell, it turned out that the real numbers were even worse. A pediatrician testified that every week dozens of infants died from cold and hunger. While on TV, the state boasted about Romania's healthcare as the best in the socialist world. On television, there were only 2 hours of broadcast each night from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m., and it was all propaganda. Comrade Nicolae Ceaușescu visited a factory where the workers exceeded their quota by 200%. Next was the highest, a historic harvest, even though the people were hungry. Afterwards, it was Elena who allegedly discovered a new chemical compound, even though she couldn't pronounce their names. While on TV, all they show is abundance and success. In real life, there are families boiling old shoes just to get protein from the glue. Some people burn their own furniture just to keep warm. In schools, there are children fainting from hunger. By 1989, people started thinking Romania was one of the few left with a rigid and closed Stalinist system. On November 9, the Berlin Wall fell. In Poland, there were free elections. In Hungary, the border to the west was opened. In Czechoslovakia, the Velvet Revolution was progressing, with Václav Havel's presidency approaching. Even Gorbachev's Soviet Union was already undergoing reforms. Ceausescu was watching his fellow dictators fall and learned nothing. When asked about glasnost and perestroika, he said that there would never be such things in Romania. At the 14th Party Congress from November 20th to 24th, 1989, while the communists of Czechoslovakia were resigning, Ceausescu was re-elected once again. His opening address lasted 5 hours and no one dared to speak. The delegates applauded on cue, afraid to be the first to stop. The protests began in Timișoara, near the border of Hungary. On December 15, the Securitate tried to disperse them. Laszlo Tokes, a Hungarian Protestant minister who criticized the government. His congregation gathered and formed a human chain to protect him. Students and workers joined in. The simple act of defending a pastor turned into a massive movement. By December 16, thousands were on the streets shouting, "Down with the dictator, down with communism." For the first time in decades, an entire nation dared to stand up and they were no longer afraid. Because of these events, the dictator responded swiftly and violently. He ordered his men to open fire directly at the people and to wipe them all out. On December 17, the most brutal day in Timișoara unfolded. The Securitate troops and police attacked the defenseless protesters, with soldiers positioned on balconies overlooking the plazas, aiming at the people's heads and chests to ensure they were killed. 12 people had been killed and hundreds were seriously injured. And to cover up the crime, they launched Operation Rose. 43 bodies were taken, loaded onto a truck, brought to the slaughterhouse and burned in the crematorium. And the families really never got their loved ones back again. On December 18, in the midst of the chaos, Ceausescu flew to Iran for a state visit. He thought he already had the situation under control, but as soon as he turned his back, Timișoara exploded. 100,000 people declared that the city was free from communism. There were soldiers siding with the people, giving out cigarettes and bread. The factories stopped, fear disappeared, and when fear was gone, the revolution began. When Ceausescu returned on December 20, he gave a televised address. He called the Timișoara incident a provocation, blaming foreign agents, even Hungarian extremists and fascist groups, and he spoke for 37 minutes without mentioning those who were killed. No sympathy, no admission. Intimidation and nothing but lies. And now that the people are awake, they know he's just pretending. December 21, the last day of Ceausescu's power. He organized a big rally at Palace Square. Thousands of workers and students were forced to attend, and those who didn't show up were immediately fired from their jobs. It was broadcast live at 12:30 p.m. to show that the people still loved him. In the first few minutes, everything was fine. Applause, red flags, and his portrait held aloft. And then the unexpected happened. Ceausescu continued to talk about enemy forces and the supposed victories of scientific socialism. His voice was really repetitive and lifeless. The sound echoed throughout the plaza from the big speakers, but after about 8 minutes, something unexpected happened.
Popular in Bucharest, considering this as one
There was a sudden explosion sound from the middle of the crowd. Some said it was a firecracker, but others said it was a chorus of boos and curses. Whatever it was, its effect was quick and really intense. The people forced to praise him suddenly turned on him, shouting, "Timișoara, Timișoara!" They switched sides and repeated, "Timișoara, Timișoara." It's the name of the city with the most martyrs at the hands of the regime. The applause turned into shouting, the electric cheers turned into anger and outrage, and all of that was happening live on TV. The camera had captured one of the most unforgettable moments in history. Ceausescu's face slowly shifted from confidence to shock until you could see real fear. His mouth opened, but no words came out. He raised his hand to silence the crowd, but the shouting only grew louder. For the first time, TV was showing the truth, not propaganda. Elena, furious, suddenly grabbed the microphone and shouted, "Be quiet, be quiet!" like a teacher scolding unruly children. But this only made the situation even more heated. The live broadcast was briefly cut, and when it returned, Ceausescu was desperately trying to save himself by offering to raise salaries from 2,000 lei to 2,200 lei. But it was too late. Millions had seen how the once most powerful man in the country had become a frightened old man. By nightfall, the capital erupted. Thousands of students and young workers set up barricades in University Square and Revolution Square. They were armed with rocks and Molotov cocktails, facing tear gas, truncheons, and bullets from security forces. Many were killed, hundreds were injured, but the protest only grew larger. By sunrise on December 22, all of Romania was ablaze. Cluj, Brasov, Sibiu, Constanta, all were rising up. The revolution was like a fire fanned by the wind, unstoppable. The day of December 22 would begin with an event that would bring down the dictatorship. At around 9:30 a.m., Defense Minister Basilio Malea was found dead inside the Central Committee building. According to the regime, he took his own life, but rumors say that Ceausescu had him killed because he refused to order the army to wipe out the civilians. When state radio broadcast that Malea was a traitor, the military's anger exploded. One by one, the battalions switched sides, embraced the protesters, turned their tanks against the security forces, tore off their red insignias, and replaced them with armbands in the colors of the Romanian flag. The army that had kept Ceausescu in power for decades now wanted him gone. And in just 3 hours, the dictator would literally be running for his own life. By late morning on December 22, nearly 100,000 people had surrounded the Central Committee building. And for the last time, Ceausescu tried to speak from the balcony that had brought him to power. But now applause no longer greeted him. Stones, shoes, anything people could get their hands on, they threw at the building. Ceausescu's bodyguards had to shield him with a bulletproof panel while people tried to break into the entrance below. Inside the building, chaos had broken out. Party officials, people who had bowed to him their whole lives, were fleeing out the back, burning documents, hiding money, and emptying the safes. His system had abandoned him. At around 12:06 p.m., when the protesters broke through the ground floor, Nicolae hurriedly went up to the roof with 2 bodyguards and 2 officials. The white helicopter was there, its rotor already spinning. The pilot was waiting. It hovered in the air while being aimed at with weapons. When they arrived, the crowd also stormed the roof. There were literally people clinging to the helicopter as it was taking off. As the helicopter was taking off, the crowd saw their dictator running away. A coward fleeing his own country, and at that moment, everyone knew it was over for him. The palace he ruled over for decades had now fallen into the hands of the people he had oppressed for so long. The helicopter only flew for 22 minutes. The pilot, Vasily Malutan, landed it near Giesti out of fear of anti-aircraft fire. There, they drove away by car, first with Nicolae Deca, then with Nicolae Petrizor, trying to escape to Targu Targoviste. But his face was already very well known. For decades, their photos had been on TV, posters, and walls every day, and truly, there was no place in Romania where they wouldn't be recognized. They were captured near Targu Targoviste around 3:30 p.m. and brought to a dirty military barracks. The couple who used to eat from plates like these, bathed in bathrooms with gold while people were starving, were now locked in a room with 2 iron beds and a single dim light bulb. Elena kept complaining about the cold and the food. Nicolae kept repeating, "I am still the president of Romania." While the couple was imprisoned, the chaos continued and the situation was truly terrifying. 1,104 E's were officially killed throughout the revolution, and out of that number, 942 were killed after Ceausescu fell. This means that most of the damage happened after the dictator was gone. After 3 days, on the morning of Christmas Day, an improvised courtroom was set up inside the Targoviste barracks. It was a simple lecture hall, previously used only for political education. The trial would be held there. 5 military officers would serve as judges, prosecutors, and even defense attorneys, all at the same time. In truth, the new government had long been decided on a death sentence. General Victor Stanculescu had already ordered Captain Lonel Boiru to select paratroopers for the firing squad. Everything was ready for what was simply called revolutionary justice. At around 1:20 p.m., the couple was brought out. Nicolae was wearing his black winter coat while Elena was still holding her purse as if it could save her. They sat at a simple table while Colonel Gika Popa read the charges. Genocide in Magit, allegedly more than 60,000 were killed. Theft of more than $1 billion abroad. Destruction of the spiritual and material wealth of Romania, and in addition to that, acts incompatible with human dignity. The exact number is no longer important. Everyone knows they are the ones who destroyed Romania. The trial is considered to be a record of history, so it was recorded on video. Nicolae rejected the authority of the court.
The paratroopers, he insisted.
Only the Grand National Assembly has the right to judge the president of Romania. He claimed it was an illegal coup carried out by foreign forces. Elena was just as brave as her husband. She called the prosecutors provocateurs and even told her own lawyer to be quiet when he started to speak. When they were asked for a plea, Nicolae said he was only willing to answer to the working class of Romania. The prosecutor replied, "They have already judged you through the revolution. Their cameras clearly showed their blindness to reality and their hypocrisy." The hearing lasted for about an hour, from 1:20 to 2:40 in the afternoon. No evidence was presented except for the facts that the whole country already knows. Lives were lost, the country was destroyed, and they are responsible. Even the defense lawyers sided with the prosecutor. One of them even said that he wished he was defending a real person because, for him, the couple Ceaușescu were no longer human. Nicolae even tried to give his final statement by singing the Internationale, but the court cut him off in the middle of the song. Then the verdict was read: death. No appeal, no mercy, no waiting. In just a few minutes, they would be gone. At around 2:50 p.m., they were brought outside. The couple pleaded to be executed together, and that was their final request. Their hands were tied behind their backs with rope. Elena struggled and screamed in shame as her wrists were being tied. A soldier told Elena, "You killed our children," referring to the young people who protested and were killed in the streets. Elena replied, "They blamed everything on me." Meanwhile, Nicolae kept singing socialist songs while they were being arranged in front of a yellow concrete wall. Captain Lionel Lonel Boyru, Sergeant Major Georgian Octavian, and Doreen Marion Serlian stood ready to fire their Kalashnikovs, each holding their own weapon. The camera crew hurried to set up their heavy video camera in the cold wind. But before any formal order could be given, and before the execution ceremony could begin, the three soldiers simultaneously attacked the couple. The gunshots echoed loudly in the narrow yard, the sound bouncing off the barracks walls. The camera only captured the last few seconds of the shooting. About 120 bullets hit their bodies in less than 30 seconds. Nicolae was the first to fall, his body twitching from the force of the shots that hit his chest and head. Elena fell next, collapsing beside him as the soldiers continued their attack, emptying the contents of their magazines. The killing was so fast and intense that the camera crew only caught the very last moments of the attack. Damage accumulated on the frozen cement, steaming in the cold of December. The doctor confirmed what everyone could already see. The dictator and his wife were gone. Their bodies were wrapped in gray tarps and placed on stretchers. This was shown on camera as proof for a nation that needed to see the evidence. In the footage, Nicolae stared blankly into space with an injury bleeding from his temple. Elena, on the other hand, was lying beside him, her face turned away, finally silent. The couple who once ordered 23 million Romanians to worship them were now just corpses lying stiff on the frozen ground. Every detail was captured by the camera for the historical record. That afternoon, Romanian television announced the trial and the execution. That night and the following day, December 26, the station aired parts of the trial and images of the executed. The actual execution was not shown, but its aftermath was seen by the entire country. In every home in Romania, families sat in silence as they watched the official end of their nightmare. The dictator is gone, the revolution has triumphed. In Timișoara, where it all began, People gathered at Opera Square, singing patriotic songs and remembering the martyrs who gave their lives for freedom. At last, Romania is now free.